Okay, this is the part 2 of the phylogenies and evolutionary relationship lecture. And in this lesson, you are to be familiar in the different parts of phylogenetic tree. So when you see a phylogenetic tree, you know how to read it. Okay? Okay, so this is a phylogenetic tree. Okay, let's understand the different parts of phylogenetic tree. Number 1. This number 1 here represents an ancestral lineage or a branch point of the ancestral lineage of all the organisms or maybe groups of organisms under study. We call these organisms taxon or taxa for plural, taxon for singular. Okay, we also call them as operational taxonomic unit. Okay, all branch points inside the phylogenetic tree, so inner branch points, represents a divergence event or hypothetical taxonomic unit, or we call HTUs. Okay, usually or ideally, hypothetical taxonomic units or branch point leads to 2 branches, so 1 and 2. But in some cases, some branches lead to more than 2 branches, or some branch point leads to more than 2 branches. For example, here it leads to 3 branches. We call this branch point a polytomy. There are 2 types of polytomy: the hard polytomy and the soft polytomy. When we say hard polytomy, a single divergence event leads to more than 2 taxonomic units. So all the data was exhausted, no? And then we really found out that one divergence event leads to several numbers of taxonomic units. But in most cases, this kind of polytomy means that there is an insufficient phylogenetic information that leads to unresolved pattern of divergence. So this needs more clarification or more data to resolve this polytomy. Okay, and then number 4 here, the branch point number 4. This represents a common, the most common recent ancestor. For example, now this number 4 leads to the branching of the OTUs or the operational taxonomic unit. So this means that number 4 is the most recent common ancestor of taxon B and taxon C. Lastly, okay, so we have here a basal taxon. Okay, so usually in this kind of tree with the ancestral lineage, we always include an outgroup or basal taxon. These taxon represent organisms with basal characteristic or least derived characters from the ancestral lineage. Right? Hope na intindihan ninyo. Okay. Phylogenetic trees can be represented in different styles, but still contain similar information or topology. For example, here, we have 3 styles, but only 1 topology. All these trees are telling us that taxon C and D are most closely related than B. No? Let's see, C and D closely related to each other than B. Again, let's see, C and D closely related than B, and A, look at the A, no? A is the basal taxa, or basal taxon, right? Next, the next that you need to understand or to remember in phylogenetic trees, the nodes or the branch point can rotate and still give the same information. For example, if we rotate A and B, it still gives us an information that A and B are closely related to each other. Okay, like here. So we have here the phylogenetic tree of turtles, birds, crocodiles, cows, and human. So if we rotate this node, it still gives us the same information that this group of organisms is related to this group of organisms. The same thing is if we rotate this node, the ancestral node, it still gives us the same organism, and same with this one, right? There are two types of phylogenetic trees, the rooted tree or the unrooted trees. When we say rooted trees, it included an outgroup, no? That's why it shows us a root of a common ancestor of all the taxonomic unit under study. Unrooted tree do not include a recent common ancestor to all taxa. It is just telling us how the different units are related to each other. Hindi niya sasabihin kung sino ng pinaka-unang nag-diverge doon sa ancestor. Right? In unrooted tree, we have what we call central branch. For example, here we have 4 external nodes and we have a central branch. Now, looking at the tree of life, we have here the rooted tree and unrooted tree. So this represents the ancestral lineage and this represents the central branch. Okay? Now, just like the rooted tree, the unrooted trees can have different styles but have the same topologies. Just like here, the 1, 2, 3, 4 are telling us the same information. Okay, for example, the A and B are related to each other than the C, A and B are related to each other, A and B related to each other than the C, A and B related to each other than the C. Okay, so on and so forth. The last topic for this lesson is the phylogenetic trees as representation of evolutionary history. Here we will be talking about the difference between homology and analogy, and also the taxonomic characteristics in a phylogenetic tree. Okay, firstly, we have the homology versus the analogy. When we say homology, this is a similarity due to shared ancestry. And analogy is similarity due to convergent evolution. Okay, so for example, here, this is a funny illustration of the difference of homology and analogy. For example, these two female here look alike because maybe they are sisters, so they share ancestry. But these two guys here look the same because they both like Elvis Presley. So they look the same not to ancestry but to environmental factors. When we say convergent evolution kasi, it is a pressure around the environment. Okay? Now, this illustration will help us understand more about the homologous and analogous structures. For example, these are homologous structures. These structures are similar, similar in structure, but they have different functions. So they are similar in terms of the internal structure. And these structures, the analogous structures, are similar in terms of their appearance and their function. So outward appearance and their function. For example, here, all these structures are used for swimming. The fin of the whale, turtle, the fish, and the penguin as function for swimming. But looking at inside those structure, so hindi sila ganon ka magkakamukha talaga. You cannot find anything or you cannot tell that this structure is due to their ancestry. But looking at the homologous structure, even these structures have different function. As you can see, this structure here is homologous to this structure here, and this one. And this structure is homologous to this structure here, and then this structure here, and this structure here. Okay, so even they have different function. This is one for digging, this is one for flying, this is for grasping, and this is for swimming. They are homologous structure because of ancestry. Right? Now, we have what we call the phyletic grouping. So, marami itong questions sa inyong learning guide or sa inyong formative assessment about monophyletic, paraphyletic, and polyphyletic grouping. When we say monophyletic grouping, this includes the ancestors, the ancestor and all its descendants. For example, here we have monophyletic grouping here, monophyletic grouping here, and monophyletic grouping here. For paraphyletic, it includes the common ancestor, but it doesn't include all the descendants. For example, for the lizards, no, for the monitor lizards and geckos, no. So, yung example natin kanina. For example, for the group of the lizard, we did not include there the snake and the eastern glass lizard. So, that will represent a paraphyletic grouping kasi meron tayong na-missed out. Okay? For polyphyletic grouping, these represent different organisms that doesn't have a common ancestor. For example, if we group together the eastern glass lizard and the snake, that's a polyphyletic group kasi magkaiba yung kanilang common ancestor, ang kanilang ancestor. Though they shared a very distant ancestor, hindi siya monophyletic grouping pa rin. Right? Okay, next, medyo marami na lilito dito. We have the apomorphy, or tinatawag natin automorphy, synamorphy, homoplasy, and symplecomorphy. When we say apomorphy or automorphy, these are the organism that is unique to the group, or what makes it unique to the group. Okay, it has a character, or it has derived character na nag-separate na sa kanya sa ibang mga organism. Okay? Synapomorphy naman are characters that they share, no, with a recent common ancestor. Okay? Symplecomorphy naman are characters that they share with the ancestral lineage. Okay? Now, homoplasy naman is similarity due to convergent evolution. So, walang relationship sa kanilang ancestry, but they look the same. Okay? Para mas madali niyong matandaan, we have here keywords. When we say syn, it means shared. When we say apo, it is derived, and morphy means character. So, when we say synapomorphy, it's a shared derived character. When we say pleso, it means ancestral. Pag ota or ot, no, it means unique. So when we say synapomorphy, it's a shared derived character. Pag automorphy, it's unique derived character. And symplecomorphy means shared ancestral character. So going back to the lizard and the snakes. So for example, the snakes is nung character ng snake na pagiging legless niya is apomorphic or automorphic siya. Okay? And this group of organisms, no, because they have legs, no, is called plesiomorphic character. Right? Now, just few clarification on phylogenetic tree. A phylogenetic tree is just a hypothesis of the evolutionary relationship of organism based on the available data. And there are many possible ways in constructing and representing phylogenetic tree. That's why at the end of the quarter, we'll be discussing about the evolution of the tree of life. And then, phylogenetic trees are based on various data sources. This means phylogenetic construction may be internal or external, can be based on internal and external physical characters, behavior, physiology, and DNA sequences, or a combination of all of those. Okay? Kasi pwede naman kasing maging homology ang characters, pwede rin maging homology ang genetic sequence. Okay, meron din tayong analogous na genetic sequence. Pag-usapan natin yan later. For example, this is an example of evolution of phylogenetic tree. The different phylogenetic trees of the protist or the eukarya. No? So, previously, when I was in college, iba pa yung phylogenetic tree. And then, for the first time, I taught in Pisay, so for the Sinastra group. So, iba pa yung phylogenetic tree, hindi pa itong supergroup. And then, later on, after a year, nagkaroon ng supergroup. And then, ngayon, yung 4 supergroup ay nadagdagan pa ng isa pang supergroup. So, nag-i-evolve talaga siya. Okay? Alright, so you have to remember that science is not the truth. Science is about finding truth. And when science changes its opinion, it didn't lie to you. It just learned more. Okay? Now, for extra lecture, so this is an extra lecture, it's about maximum parsimony and maximum likelihood. Kasi may mga nagtatanong or nagre-request ng definition ng maximum parsimony and maximum likelihood. When we say maximum parsimony and maximum likelihood, this is a way for scientists to be sure to find the best tree in a large dataset. So, kasi iba't ibang tree ang pwede mong i-create nga, no, depending on data. So, meron tayong dalawang way to test kung aling tree ang pinaka-best na gamitin. So, we have parsimony and the likelihood. When we say parsimony, we are looking at the evolutionary events. Ang theory kasi ng maximum parsimony, ang evolutionary events ay hindi madaling mangyari. So, it's not common to have evolutionary events. So, maraming effort ang ginagawa ng organism just to make a new character. So, ang pagkakaroon ng new character is not often. So, ibig sabihin, ang more likely na possible sa maximum parsimony nung may least evolutionary events. For maximum likelihood naman, ang ginagawa nito ay meron siyang certain models na ginagamit. So, meron tayong iba't ibang mga models. Actually, madidiscuss ito sa bioinformatics, yung maximum likelihood. So, we have certain rules how DNA changes. For example, may mga theories na sabi na purine to purine ay mas madali mag-change than pyrimidine to purine. Okay? So, pyrimidine to pyrimidine, purine to purine, mas madali siyang magkaroon ng substitution than purine maging masubstitute siya ng pyrimidine. Okay, so mga ganun mga rules. So, ini-incorporate yan sa isang software. Okay, now for you to understand the maximum parsimony, mayroon akong example. For example, now we have 3 species here, species 1, 2, and 3 of birds. So, you can draw the phylogenetic tree in 3 ways. Wherein the species 1 and 2 are more closely related to each other, or 1 and 3 ang mas closely related, or 2 and 3 ang mas closely related with each other. Now, alin dito sa tatlong to ang merong maximum parsimony? Now, to test kung alin ang may maximum parsimony, we can look for character and character state. Now, for this particular example, ang ating character ay sequence. Sequence sa site 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the character states are A, T, C, or G. Right? Now, for here, meron tayong in-include dito ng ancestral sequence. So, possible na ito ng pinaka-lineage, no, na kukunin dito. We have ancestral lineage. At ito yung genetic sequence ng species 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now, ang gagawin natin dito, titingnan natin kung alin yung nagkaroon ng change. Okay? For example. Alright, so we will score ngayon kung ano yung mga changes na nangyari o evolutionary events. So, for site 1, we will use the red marker. So, as you can see here, from the ancestral sequence, ang nag-change ay si species 2 and 3. So, kung ito yung phylogenetic tree natin, ito yung magkakaroon ng evolutionary event na nag-change yung A para maging C. So, dito naman, dahil A and C, so, sila? Separate event. Yung change ng A into C. At dito rin, yung dito, yan. So, separate event din sila. Okay. Now, let's represent the site 2 with green. Okay. Kuha tayo ng mas matingkad na green. Represent natin ng green. Okay, ang nagkaroon din ng change ay etong si species 1 and 2 rin. So, dito rin nagkaroon ng change. Ito, nagkaroon din ng change dito. At nagkaroon din ng change dito. Okay, tapos nagkaroon din ng change dito. Nagkaroon ng change dito. Okay, next, let's have the blue. For the side 3. So, ito ng ating ancestral sequence. So, ang merong change ay itong si species 3 and species 1. So, dito sa 1 and 3, nagkaroon ng change. Dito naman, nagkaroon tayo ng 1 and 3. So, malamang dito yung they share the change kasi. So, dito nagkaroon ng change. And then, dito naman, 1 and 3. So, 1 and 3. Okay. Lastly, we'll use the purple. So, the change happened in species 3 and 2. So, 3 and 2. 3 and 2. And then, this will be 3 and 2. Okay, now let's score kung gaano karami yung changes na nangyari sa kanila. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, dito, nagkaroon ka ng 6 evolutionary events. Here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 evolutionary events. So, here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 evolutionary events. From the rule of parsimony, no? So, nung pinaka-maximum parsimonious or nung mayroong maximum parsimony ay nung may least evolutionary event. So, dito, ang sinasabi, ito nung mayroong maximum parsimony. Okay, so, ito nung pinaka-plausible kung gagamitin natin ng parsimony na evolutionary events. Okay? So, kapareho lang yan dito. So, this is just a summary. And you can find this in Campbell if you want more explanation of this one. Okay? So, maximum parsimony and likelihood. So, when we say maximum parsimony, we are looking at the minimal number of character state changes. And for maximum likelihood, we are using techniques or technique on drawing phylogenetic tree. So we have here rules or laws. Okay? So in maximum parsimony, we are considering low number of characters, and maximum likelihood, we should use the high number of characters. Usually in maximum parsimony, the branches are long and shorter in maximum likelihood. Less reliable ang maximum parsimony than the likelihood kasi meron na itong mga well-studied rules and laws na ginagamit. Right? So, yun lang. That's the end of our lecture.